Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we're about all things cinema. All right, I'm excited today here on Labor Day weekend. Have the opportunity to share my thoughts on a recent release from the Criterion Collection on Blu-ray. This is a title that comes in at spine 1274 in the Criterion Collection, and it is from a director who is new to the collection. Zeinabu Irene Davis, a Philadelphia native, shot this film Compensation in 1993, but it wasn't released until 1999. So this is Compensation on Criterion Blu-ray, spine number 1274 in the Criterion Collection, and I want to spend a few minutes sharing what I think about this title. I saw this film for the first time on this Blu-ray after picking it up earlier this past week. It just came out, and I want to share what I think about this title. This is a title that I suspect is going to fly under the radar for a lot of people. And so it's for that reason that I want to bring this to your attention, because this is a title that I think if you're interested in something different, something a little bit of a departure from the mainstream, a nice piece of independent filmmaking that gives you something unique and different, this is a title you might want to think about. So I'm going to share what I think about this film, what I think about how it looks on the Blu-ray format. It is a black and white film shot on 16 millimeter in 1993. So how does it look? I'll talk about that. And then I'll talk about the special features and whether or not this is a title you ought to consider adding to your collection. So on the other side of this, we'll get into it. It's Labor Day weekend. It's halftime during the Georgia Bulldogs game against Marshall. They're up 24-0, so all is good. So let's talk about Compensation. Let's do this. All right, we're talking Compensation from the Criterion Collection on Blu-ray. This is a very fascinating title, and I definitely want to talk about this title today. So this title represents a group that I think is very much underrepresented, and that is the community of deaf and hard of hearing. This film does a really nice job of bringing that community to the fore and really helping one think about some of the challenges they experience, not only in their own lives, but in relating to others in relationships with hearing people. And that is portrayed in two parallel love stories that are shown in this film. And these parallel love stories take place at the beginning and end of the 20th century. So one story takes place in the 1910s, the other in the 1990s, and they're portrayed by the same actor and actress. The first being John Earl Jelks is the man. He plays Arthur Jones and Nico Jones in the early 1900s and late 1900s. And Michelle A. Banks plays Melindy Brown and Malika Brown in the early and late 1900s. And in both cases, the women are deaf and they are in a relationship with a young man who is hearing. And so you get a glimpse into some of the challenges that can be presented in those situations, but also the beauty that can be experienced through those relationships. It shows how they meet, how they get to know one another, how they learn how to communicate with each other. And in both cases, the deaf women teach their men American Sign Language. And this is another nice touch of this particular cover here. You'll see Compensation at the top of each letter. You'll see the American Sign Language representation of that letter. So that's a nice touch. At the top here, you'll see the couple from the early 1900s and then the late 1900s below. So these are both parallel love stories, both taking place in Chicago during different parts of the 20th century. It also does a nice job of not only representing the deaf community, but also a segment of that community, Black, African American, minorities, some of the additional challenges that they dealt with in addition to being deaf, in many cases dealing with the segregation that occurred in some of the deaf schools that took place at that time, and just some of the challenges on top of dealing with the physical challenges of being deaf, also dealing with racism as well, whether you're talking about the beginning of the century or even into the 1990s. So it deals with the complexities of relationships with this additional aspect added to it. I think both of these actors did a great job of portraying these characters. And I think that Zeinabu Irene Davis does a beautiful job of bringing this story to us. So I definitely think that this is a film that you might want to consider adding to your collection if you're interested in independent filmmaking, something that's a departure from your mainstream type of a title. I love mainstream titles. I have a ton of them. But I also love the Criterion Collection because they do titles like this that brings to your attention a type of a film that you might not otherwise think about. So that's what Compensation is. So a fantastic film. Zeinabu Irene Davis was influenced by and was part of the LA Rebellion movement, which was a group of Black filmmakers in UCLA Film School who developed films in the 1960s through the late 1980s that were a departure from your standard Hollywood fare. So folks like Charles A. Burnett, who gave us Killer of Sheep that I reviewed earlier this year on this channel. Wonderful Criterion 4K that I highly recommend. Of course, he was connected with Zeinabu Irene Davis and was one of her influences as she was making this film, which was outside of that movement, but was heavily influenced by the LA Rebellion movement. So just great, fascinating stuff. So this is a really interesting film that I highly recommend. Now, in terms of how this film looks on Blu-ray, this film was restored based upon a 4K digital scan of the original 16 millimeter negative, as it says here in About the Master. And it looks really nice. It's a beautiful black and white film. I think they did a really nice job restoring this film. As Zeinabu Irene Davis refers to it, it was rejuvenated. She talks about that here. And in the special features, it shows footage of before and after. So the unrestored footage and the restored footage, you can definitely see how the restoration or the rejuvenation brings the film to life in a way that earlier audiences were not able to experience back in 1999. So beautiful stuff. And they were also able to do some beautiful things with the sound in terms of taking all the channels of sound that Zeinabu Irene Davis originally recorded and bringing that sound to life. In this stapled booklet here that you see the cover of, which is nice, you'll see on the inside, you have the early 1900s couple, and then on the back of this, you'll see the late 1900s couple. So that's a nice touch, beautiful touch. And then you'll also see in here, of course, cast and credits and a number of essays, including an essay called Archiving the Spirit by Raquel Gates. Raquel Gates moderated a panel, one of the Q&A panels that the cast and crew appeared on, that is on this disc. That is a very informative panel. So you'll definitely want to check that out. But you also have another essay in here. Of course, you have Rejuvenation, as I mentioned before, by Zeinabu Irene Davis. Beautiful stuff. But then you have Captioning Compensation, which is a conversation between Zeinabu Irene Davis and Allison O'Donnell. And that's really important because this film really speaks to those who are deaf as well as to hearing. And so because of that, the scenes are captioned, which describes the different sounds, the sonic activity going on in addition to what you're seeing on screen for the benefit of those who are not able to hear it, helping them to also appreciate what is being portrayed in the story. But some beautiful pictures in this stapled booklet in addition to the wonderful essays. And I think that this is a very nice touch in this edition. Another thing that I think is a nice touch is the way that Zeinabu Irene Davis conveys this story. So she conveys this story, in particular, the early century part of it, through a series of archival photographs. And these are archival photographs that she gathered in her research from the Chicago museums and libraries, capturing stills and footage from that part of the early 20th century. It sets the stage in a very inventive way without making a huge investment from a production standpoint. So I thought that was nice. And I just think she did a really nice job with this film. Very nice piece of independent filmmaking. Now, in terms of the special features, there are some nice features on here. You have an audio commentary with Zeinabu Irene Davis and her husband, screenwriter Mark Arthur Cherry. Really nice stuff. They do a nice job of providing a lot of contextual detail into the filmmaking and what went into how they set up each scene and what went into the descriptions that are put up on screen and the symbolism. Beautiful job. I thought they were very engaged, and it was a very nice commentary to listen to for the few minutes that I caught. I definitely want to listen to the rest of that commentary, but I definitely recommend it. You also have a couple of short films by Davis, including Crocodile Conspiracy and Pandemic Bread. Pandemic Bread in particular touched me because it dealt with what many of us saw and dealt with just 5 years ago in 2020, and just some of the challenges that impacted so many people. And in this case, in Pandemic Bread, she shows the story of a woman dealing with some very difficult decisions concerning her mother, who's in the hospital suffering from the virus, and the challenges that so many people were experiencing during that time. That was very, very powerful. And I definitely recommend checking out Pandemic Bread from 2023. Great short from Zeinabu Irene Davis. You also have a couple of Q&As from the cast and crew who reunited. So those are very nice. And those Q&As included Zeinabu Irene Davis speaking, but also the two leads speaking as well. So you had John Earl Jelks speaking about his experiences working with the director and working with Michelle A. Banks. You also had Michelle A. Banks, who in real life is a deaf woman, how she was able to portray her experiences using sign language. And they had an interpreter there who was able to sign to her the questions coming from the audience and the discussion on the panel. And she was able to convey her answers and her discussion in sign language. So that was beautiful seeing that. So some wonderful insight from the Q&As there. And then you also have a new program about select archival photographs and the symbols in the film. So I think there are some wonderful special features on here. This film was definitely a revelation for me. It opened my eyes to an underrepresented community, and it is a beautiful story about two couples at two ends of the century dealing with the challenges of relationships that are common to all relationships, but with the additional angle of it being a deaf person and a hearing person, and then also dealing with the challenges of health struggles that come along the way and how each couple deals with that too. So I thought it was beautiful, poetic, and it is for that reason I recommend this title. I think it looks beautiful on Blu-ray, and the special features do a nice job of introducing you to Zeinabu Irene Davis and her brilliant filmmaking in this film, Compensation. You'll also want to check out Zeinabu Irene Davis's appearance in the Criterion Closet that came out recently. So that is out there on the Criterion Collection YouTube channel, and I believe on their website. So definitely check out Zeinabu Irene Davis Visits the Criterion Closet. But I am so happy to have discovered this filmmaker, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of what she's put out. But let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about this review? Does this review inspire you to perhaps check out Compensation? If you're interested in independent filmmaking, something a little bit different, this is one you might want to consider adding to your cart. And also let me know what other Criterion titles you are watching, or just whatever else you are engaging in the world of physical media and entertainment. Let me know all that in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Now I got to get to the second half of this Georgia Marshall game and the rest of college football action. Have a great one. Have a great Labor Day holiday if you're watching this during the holiday, and have a great day whenever you're watching. Peace.